Half of the world's population lived under some sort of curfew. Many of the restrictions are still left in place. And the worrying thing is that it seems like they're going back and forth. This could be here for a long time. Harsh restrictions and closing down society, that's bound to create frustration, bitterness and anger.
Johan Norberg est un écrivain suédois libéral, fervent défenseur de la mondialisation. Très inquiet pour les libertés publiques à l'heure du Covid-19, il a publié dans l'hebdomadaire britannique The Spectator un article sur le sujet, traduit par Courrier International.
The whole world basically shut down, and half of the world's population lived under some sort of curfew. We blocked borders, we stopped trade, we stopped people from moving, flights were grounded, and policemen started to ask people for their papers when they were out strolling or jogging. We haven't experienced anything like this in peacetime in liberal democracies. And the worrying thing to me is that it happened almost overnight, without any kind of open debate about the costs and benefits and the potential problems long term with these kinds of dismantlings of human freedoms. I just listened to the British Prime Minister Boris Johnson, who said just a couple of weeks ago that we should begin to open up. Now he's back to trying to close down society. And I think particularly disturbing is this rule of six. More than six people cannot meet. The Home Secretary says that if I notice that my neighbor has more than six people at home, I will call the police. Now, that's what you do in an authoritarian society. You watch your neighbors, you're afraid of your neighbors, and you call the police if you don't think that they behave in the right way. And the fact that we've now reached that point in an old liberal democracy like Britain, that to me is a worrying sign that something has changed dramatically. All over continental Europe and in Britain, many of the restrictions are still left in place. And the worrying thing is that it seems like they're going back and forth all the time. It seems to me there's no clear, obvious deadline. And in that case, we'll go back and forth like this for a very long time, I fear. As Milton Friedman, the economist and Nobel laureate, said, there's nothing as permanent as a temporary government program. Every time that governments assume new powers, there's a ratchet effect, as Robert Higgs called it in the classic book, Crisis and Leviathan. When we begin to fear the world and each other, often happen during crisis times, could be Great Depressions or natural disasters or pandemics, we look for a strong man or a government to protect us. So they get new powers, they take more resources, governments expand. Then after a while, the crisis blows over and governments return some of those powers to the people, but not all of them. That almost never happens. And I think we'll see that ratchet effect this time around as well. We have already seen horrible effects of the world shutting down. We only closed the world for 3-4 months, but that was enough to create a global depression, mass unemployment, increased poverty and hunger in the poor world. And in rich countries, depressions with less resources in the long run for things like medical innovation and resources to healthcare as well. It's important to deal with the pandemic, but it's also important to make sure that people will continue to lead good, healthy lives. When it comes to dealing with the transmission of the disease, I think that there is a case to be made for a Swedish model where the public health authorities took COVID-19 very seriously and recommended social distancing. Told people, if you can avoid going on that bus, going to work, if you can skip that trip, do it, because it's for your safety and for the safety of society. But that didn't mean harsh restrictions that apply to everybody. So it left some room for individual needs, for local knowledge about what we really needed. And that, I think, was important for people to keep their life going, but also for public trust, because this could be here for a long time. And in that case, we need some sort of system in place that we can live with. And harsh restrictions and closing down society, that's bound to create frustration, bitterness, and anger.